Yeah, so we had a school shooting in Georgia. Which doesn't happen a lot for a state that's got so many gun owners, which we do. Everybody I know has guns, carries them. Yet we don't have a lot of school shootings in Georgia, honestly. So this one, actually, I just drove past the school. When I made a left on the highway, we were within half a mile. If I'd gone off on the other side road, I would have driven past Appalachian High School. It's literally in Sarah's, my stepdaughter's, backyard. The kids cut through her yard to get to the school. It's where her daughter, Riley, would be on that campus, except she won a lottery for gifted kids. They had so many spots if you're in the gifted class to go to like one of the other smarter kid schools. So she goes to the other school. Otherwise, she would have been at the middle school that's on the campus of that shooting. So this hit a little close to home. And the other school that went into lockdown because there were rumors that there was a second shooter or there was something going on, I don't know, was my wife's other granddaughter, Kayla, was texting her and the family from her lockdown in her high school, where SWAT was running through door to door checking everything, you know. So this is a very, and my buddy TJ is the mayor of Decula, which feeds into that school. So he's been meeting with the parents of the kids that got shot, were affected, and, you know. So, not that I'm involved in any of this, but this hit close to home when you got family members and stuff that are, you know, involved in this shit. And, you know, seeing it immediately be politicized of, well, this is why we need to ban guns and AR. Just stop. Guns have nothing to do with what causes this. Yes, it's hard to have a shooting without guns, but there is no argument that anyone can make of getting rid of guns. Well, what about just AR-15s? No. Well, there's 25 million of them already out there, and you can 3D print more. The genie's out of the bottle. It is never going back. And the reason that AR-15s are used so much in these types of shootings are because they're the most popular rifle in America. If the most popular rifle was something else, you would see that one used. There's nothing inherently different about an AR. Its biggest reason for being used in school shootings is because the sensationalism of the media, which has basically told us that if you want to do a school shooting, the AR-15 is the one to get. And there's more of them than anything. So saying that, well, the AR-15 is the most used in school shootings, which is the minority of deaths, by the way, that's a different discussion. While it may be used in that very narrow, while still more common than it should be, still rare when it comes to how many deaths there are in the United States, and then you narrow down how many are due to guns, and then you narrow down how many are due to that rifle, and how many of them from that rifle take place in schools, you're more likely to drown in your own bathtub or get hit by lightning than you are to die by an AR-15 in a school shooting. Run the math, that's not just a claim, run the math and you'll see that the numbers work out. You're more likely to die in a car accident on the way to school than you are to get shot in school by a kid with an AR-15. So while it does happen, and it should never happen, the reality is we got 400 million guns in circulation, with a couple million sold each and every month. It's not going anywhere. And per capita, the percentage of households that own a legal firearm is lower than it used to be, by double digits. So while the number's gone up, it hasn't kept pace with the population growth. So the number of households statistically that have guns is quite a bit lower than it was when I grew up. And yet we didn't have any school shootings when I grew up. It was unheard of. It was unheard of for every generation prior. America has had guns in the homes in higher per capita numbers with less regulations through almost all of our history. School shootings are a relatively new phenomenon. Gun laws are more strict and more restricted and limited now than they have been at any point in U.S. history. So guns and guns availability haven't, semi-automatic rifles like the AR-15 are over a century old. The AR-15 was developed in the 50s, but semi-autos in general have been around for over a century. These are not some new, crazy, high-powered gun that didn't exist before. It's not the case. People that don't know about guns, don't know the history, don't know how they work, should not have opinions on this. People make the argument, hey, if you don't have a vagina, then you shouldn't have an opinion on abortion. Okay, well, if you don't know about guns and own guns, then you shouldn't have an opinion on guns. But the second it happened, what was going down, my wife is upset and crying because her granddaughter's on lockdown, and Sarah's freaking out because the school is next door to her house, like literally. It hit a baseball and hit the building from her house. So she's like, if there's a shooter, they weren't sure if there were more than one shooter, and if the shooter escaped, are they going to cut through her subdivision? So she's freaking out. And as a mother of 3 kids, one whose daughter should have been there at that school, or next door to the school, in the middle school, but on the same campus, understandably upset and freaked out. And it's very traumatic, and it's awful, and it should never happen. But there's a lot of things in the world. Wars should never happen. Famine should never happen. Rape should never happen. Arson, assaults, theft. A lot of things that should never happen. But some people are going to do horrific things. And you can't stop that by saying, well, we'll just take away this tool. From all the people that aren't doing these things, if we take away their guns, somehow this 1 in a million wacko won't be able to be a wacko anymore. No, that's not how this works. You can make guns at home. Hey, there's no way to reasonably, even if there wasn't a constitution and a Supreme Court to say, yeah, you're not doing that, even if those things didn't exist, there's no logistical, practical way to go around and round up all of the 400 million guns from everybody that owns them. We have more legal gun owners, just people who legally own guns, than the entire populations of Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom all combined. That's just how many gun owners we have. Then you got to factor in, you got several million criminals and gangbangers, drug dealers, and street thugs that have illegal weapons that you don't know. There's no way to go round them up. There's no registry, nor would they register if there was one. So when you see Harris and everybody talk about, well, we need to do this common sense. The common sense here, when you look at every single goddamn school shooter, it's never the popular kid. It's never the captain of the football team that's banging the hot cheerleader, that's voted prom king and in the academic clubs. And those guys are too busy banging chicks and enjoying being at the top of the food chain. It's always the weirdos from broken fucking homes with drug addict parents, mental instability, issues, on the law enforcement's radar. Nobody does a goddamn thing. And then the kid goes and does something. This is exactly what happened in Parkland and Sandy Hook and every other one. As soon as it happens, everyone's like, oh shit. They go back, they see the whole 3 or 4 year trail, the breadcrumbs that led up to it, and it leads to their door as the law enforcement that failed and didn't do their jobs, whether we're talking about Sandy Hook or Vivaldi or any of those things, Uvalde, whatever. You look at all the people who fucked up, failed, did a shitty job as a parent, didn't report something. When it was reported, they didn't act on it. But no one wants to go, oh shit, I'm at fault for creating a serial killer, so what do? Blame the gun. Blame the NRA. Say it's Trump's fault. And they do this every goddamn time. And that annoys the shit out of me. I own a lot of guns. I have a gun sitting on my hip, loaded, ready to go, right now on my hip, like I do every frickin' day, like most of my friends do. I've never shot anybody. No well-adjusted kid that's popular and having a good life, stable background, just wakes up one morning and says, you know what, instead of going to prom today, I think I'm going to go procure a weapon and just mow people down. For no reason. That's never happened. There is always signs. We have so many shit parents that don't want to do their jobs because parenting is hard and they don't want to be the bad guy and come down. They want to be their kid's friend. Your job as a parent is not to be your kid's friend. Now, if you can have a friendly relationship with them, obviously that's what you would want. But your job as a parent is to prepare them to go out into the world, be productive, and be the next generation, and get to a point where they have their own family. And then they pass on that to their kids, and so on. You get the mom here who's a drug addict, been arrested multiple times, big rap sheet, violence, domestic violence, theft, drug dealing. She kidnapped a 73-year-old woman and had her tied up. I mean, your mother's a piece of shit. The neighbors talk, oh yeah, for years. We'd hear loud, crazy music in the morning, and we go out, and her car is in the driveway. She's passed out drunk, face down, in the driveway with the engine and the car running, and the radio blasting. When you're a kid and you grow up in a world like that, where the father beats the kid, beats the wife, he's a scumbag, mom is a freaking drug addict and drug dealer and constantly driving drunk and getting DUIs and all that, in and out of jail, how do you think that kid's going to turn out? And then the father admits that, yeah, the kid's got emotional problems and this and that. And then you think, as a parent who is aware of all this with their kid, because they live with him, yeah, you know what he needs for his 13th birthday? An AR-15. Now, I'm not opposed to kids having guns. Growing up, my best friend Shane, I don't think he ever had an AR-15. I don't even think his dad had any of that, but had lots of shotguns, bolt actions, handguns, pistols, revolvers. But Shane, for like a 16th birthday, had a 9mm, had a Taurus PT92, stainless. And then he had a Ruger 357 Magnum. And as teenagers in high school, Shane had his guns and live ammo in his bedroom in the closet. That was normal because he was raised right. He had a hunting license. His dad disciplined him and would tan his ass if he did something stupid. Now, it doesn't mean we didn't occasionally take the guns out in the backyard. And we backed up to like 150 acres of forest and didn't go shoot at some tin cans from time to time. But even then, we followed gun safety, and But it never occurred to us, or any of us, that, I mean, Shane Johnson, all of those guys, Carl Ronda, everybody freaking, we were in rural New Jersey. Everybody had freaking guns. Now, New Jersey's strict for gun laws and shit like that, but, especially back in the early, mid, and late 80s, wasn't quite as bad as it is today. And so we were always around guns. Never had any freaking school shootings. My parents' generation had Bob, I think, mentioned when in his high school, had a shooting team. Kids would bring their guns to school with ammo and store them in the vice principal's office. And after school, they had a shooting club, team, whatever. So there you have kids bringing guns and ammo to school. There's no school shootings. It was unheard of. So guns haven't changed. What has? People. People have gotten shittier. We've relaxed any standards in society. Kids can change their gender and be whatever they want with impunity, no consequences. And I'm sorry, if you do that, you are a shitty parent. Your job is not to let the kids do anything that makes them happy. Kids are stupid. Kids are uneducated. They don't have the experience of the world. They're not equipped to make big decisions. But I want to make them happy. I want to be their friend. So you just let them do whatever. And then you got entitled little pricks for kids, or some of them rape and murder, and you're like, where all these mass murderers come from? They don't just drop out of the sky. Every single one comes from bad parenting. Or the kid has a legit mental illness. But even then, as a parent's job, it's part of your job to listen to your kids, to be involved in their lives, know what they're doing, who they're hanging out with. Just handing them a cell phone and saying, yeah, be back sometime by dark, and just assuming everything's fine and not paying any attention and thinking, oh, well, I'll just give them some drugs and sit them in front of an iPad and I've done my job as a parent. I can have my glass of wine now. No. I didn't like my parents growing up. Why? Because my parents were strict. And I was a dick, and I was a pain in the ass. And they held me responsible for it. But I grew out of it, and I have the basic tools, and I've done pretty well in my life. I've never done violence. I've never done, been arrested for anything. I work hard. I play hard. I can be annoying and argumentative at times, and those kinds of things, but I'm not what I would consider a bad person. I'm certainly not a danger to anybody. But you look at how many kids now are getting arrested and dealing drugs and violence, all this kind of stuff, and you're just like, what has happened? And then every single time, without fail, here's the warning signs. Yeah, he was on the FBI's radar last year. Yeah, the parents did this and that. I am so glad that Georgia is following that Ohio law, case, whatever, where they're charging the parent. Put the parent in jail for 20 years. Kid's going away for life. His life is over. 14 years old, he is going to die in prison. His life is done. But put the parents in jail and make that the norm. Every time your kid's out there dealing drugs, doing shit, I would start, if they're doing it under your house, and they can show in any way that you had reason to know, or that you should have known, and you chose to turn a blind eye or ignore it, you are guilty of negligence, and you should be charged with the same crime that the kid is. Why not? In this case, that kid didn't just magically turn out the way he did. He turned out the way he did from a systematic, lifelong exposure to a toxic environment created by two people, the mom and the dad. They molded that kid into the savage little animal that he is today. And the father made it worse by giving the kid the weapon as a present. I said before, I'm not against kids having guns, but you're gonna give a kid like that a fucking gun? Are you insane? He asked rhetorically. Yeah. In that case, put the dad in jail. If the problem, the root cause of what we have is not guns. Guns are a utensil. They obviously are a component of the violent act itself, but they're not the cause of the act itself. You can have guns all over the place. Without a person that's willing to pick it up and go use it to harm others, it's a paperweight. And someone who wants to go out and inflict harm on others, they're going to do it one way or another. They're going to do it with a gun. They're going to do it with a pipe bomb. They're going to do it with poison or fire, or go make a gun, 3D print one, get a pressure cooker and some black powder or whatever. There are all kinds of ways to wreak havoc that are all a click or two on the internet away. It's not hard. And so focusing on the gun and ignoring the ever looming and increasing and what should be obvious mental health crisis that we have. How many of these kids are on drugs? Like pharmaceutical grade, prescriptions for their behavior. Oh, you just give them a pill, they'll be fine. And then suddenly they're not. It causes mood swings, it detaches them from reality. You put them on these things to calm them down, but what it does is it tamps down all their emotions. Like guilt, compassion. You turn them into little zombies where they're just kind of numb. And say, here, go play Fortnite and Call of Duty, and they're getting picked on savagely at school, and they're tormented and basically tortured. And they just get angry, and the parents don't, they ignore it. They start making some threats, and law enforcement drops the ball. And then at some point it bubbles over, and they're just like, this is what I'm doing. And they plan it out, and they carry it out. And then we all scramble, trying to point the finger at the gun as if the gun was the cause of it. And it's just not. And the problem when you do that is, A, you focus your time and resources against legal gun owners like me or my wife or my parents, people that have done nothing wrong and never would. And while you're doing that, you're letting the actual problem get worse because you're not addressing it. You need to be focusing on the parents and the kids and mental health, and you're ignoring that because it's more politically expedient to just blame the gun and the NRA and focus on that. And while you do that, people are dying because you're not. It's like having cancer, and all you want to focus on is, well, let's just cut your fingernails off because I don't want you to get a hangnail. Yeah, I'd rather have you remove the tumor and get me better and cure my cancer. No, our doctors are going to do this instead. And then you're like, oh, I can't believe he died from cancer. Well, yeah, because you treated the wrong symptom. You spent all your time over there, and the problem, the cause that was actually killing him is over there. And you ignored it. Because politics. Because I'm a Democrat. I have to be against against guns. Okay, well, your Democrat ideology is what causes this shit. You're soft on crime. You allow anything goes. Kids can do whatever dumb shit they want, whether it be gender stuff, acting out, whatever. Oh, we have to understand them. No, you don't. You need to discipline the little shits and get them to follow the fucking rules and understand that life is better for you if you basically follow the rules and try to get along. That's what school is supposed to teach you. Yeah, you need to know some history. You need to know how to speak properly, speak good. You need to know math, basic job skills that can translate into something. But what school is really supposed to teach you is, here is how society works. Here's how to live a life. Here's how to get through it. You follow the rules, you do the right things, you treat others with kindness, you treat as you want to be treated. And people that tend to do that, on average, tend to have much better lives. They're happier, they're more productive, less likely to end in tragedy. But schools don't want to teach that. They want to have drag queen story hour and teach you 57 genders and scare the bejesus out of kids that if their parents don't drive the right car, they're going to destroy the planet. We're all going to die in 7 years. All the nonsense that schools fill kids' heads with, instead of what the kids actually need to cope and adapt and survive, this is the result. That's leftist ideology. That's Democrat, liberal doing, not Republicans. Now, I don't think you need prayer in school and all that stuff as an atheist, but I would say that if you had Republican-run public education that focused on academics and morals and all this other kind of stuff and got rid of all the happy horseshit liberal nonsense, I don't think we'd have the school shootings. No. I really don't. I think they would be so rare, like they used to be when schools did more of those things that I described that typically exist on the conservative side of the coin. When schools were more like that, and you had real discipline, and they didn't put up with nonsense, and they had you accountable, we didn't tend to have these problems. I've said this before. When anything is acceptable, then by definition, nothing is unacceptable. I think that's the truth. When anything goes, that means anything goes. And you got these kids that are just sitting on TikTok all day and exposed to the worst aspects of humanity. And teachers have access to them for 8 to 10 hours a day and are filling their heads with stupidity and nonsense and not holding them accountable, not teaching them responsibility, self-reliance, respect for human life, respect for others. And then you wonder why a small fraction of the kids turn out this way. And when the parents aren't held responsible, what is a parent's incentive to raise their kids right? The biggest fear they have is to, well, I don't want to get in trouble, have child protective services or whatever. Well, guess what? Your ass is going to prison now. Because when the police came to your house because your kid was making threats about shooting up a fucking school, you lied to them. You didn't tell them about the emotional problems. You didn't share with them the scope of what the kid's been through and that you had concerns. You said, oh, there's hunting rifles here, but he doesn't have unsupervised access to those. When you bought him his own AR-15. The parent is ultimately the kid pulled the trigger. But that kid pulled the trigger because the parents put him in that situation. He's a kid. He's a product of his upbringing. And until you force parents, and the only way to force a parent is by making them culpable for whatever their kids do. If my dad gave me a bottle of Jack Daniels and the keys to his sports car at age 13 and said, here you go, son, he can't act surprised when the cops show up and say, yeah, your 13-year-old was driving drunk and took out 5 mailboxes. Oh my God, I don't understand how this could have happened. Well, can you? Really? And if your kid did that, the parent would be responsible. When a kid vandalizes, and he's a minor living with the parents are responsible. Well, when the child takes the gun that you provided to them and shoots people, why would you as the parent not be held responsible? Charge them with secondary, all the things. The dad's got like 15 charges or something against him. Most of them felonies. That dad could go away for the rest of his life, and I hope he does. Everyone wants to talk about, we got to control access to guns. Yeah, we certainly don't want guns to be in the wrong hands. But when are we going to have an adult conversation around some people just shouldn't have kids? If you're a drug addict and you can't hold down a job and you're constantly getting evicted and arrested for dealing and assault, battery, and the mom would basically kidnap some elderly one. Why the fuck are you allowed to have kids? Why are you allowed to have kids and bring them into the world in that environment and expecting that they're going to learn the right things and cope? Sorry. All this talking is making my voice ragged. Anyway, I'm going to be watching this case. TJ knows the judge, so we'll go get some inside info. But the parents are going to be held. Parents need to be held responsible legally. If your kid goes out in the world as a minor living under your care, you should be responsible for everything they do. Oh, that's not fair. You know, kids sneak out and do things. Yeah. So be an adult, be their parent, not their friend, and ground their ass. Make them understand why not to do that. Make them afraid to do that because they're going to get punished or they're going to get their car ticket with something. I was glad when the parents of the shooter in Ohio got charged and sentenced. And I'm glad to see them immediately doing that here. I want to see that I want to see that not as the exception. I want to see the norm of every time some kid does some wacky, crazy shit. I want to see parents going to jail in the next cell over from their kid. And I want everyone to see that, and I want that to be publicized and high profile, because that is the only way you're going to force some of these parents to take an interest in their kids' lives. Some people will not do the right thing unless you absolutely force them to. So instead of talking about confiscating guns from people who didn't commit the crimes in the first place, maybe that's a conversation we need to be having. Taking kids away from parents who shouldn't have them. And when the kids are with the parents and the kids do something horrific, put the parents in jail. Make them accessories to the crime. Make them directly responsible. And after a while, you know, and you say, oh, that won't deter anything. Well, yeah, when the police really crack down on speeding in an area, what happens? People try to... don't speed in this area because they don't want to get a ticket. We do this everywhere else in society, but not when kids' lives are on the line. That's where we draw the line. Well, you know, doing these things for tickets and run over mailboxes and dumb shit. But when it really matters, yeah, we're not going to hold the parents responsible. No, fuck that. Throw the book at the parents, put them in jail, make that kind of bad parenting a felony. And put it on the news and let everyone see it and get the notion in parents' heads of, holy shit, my kid's acting wacky. I could lose my career and my job and my freedom for 20 years because of what somebody else does. Maybe that'll push them to take an interest in what goes on and do the right thing. It's certainly worth a try, and it'll certainly get you farther towards putting an end to this shit than talking about common sense gun control as if there weren't already 8,500 firearm laws already on the goddamn books. Oh, I'm all congested. Anyway, that's it. I guess I subconsciously went to Covington, Mystic Falls, Virginia. Well, Covington, Georgia, aka Mystic Falls, Virginia. I'm going to go get some lunch if I'm going to do Mystic Grill or Social Goat. That's all I've got to say. So I guess I'll let the camera run at least until I get down in a little bit of town. There's the lovely clock tower. It's a cool little town. Oh, weather will be nice if I have to wait outside waiting on a table. Well, there's some spots available, so we shall see. If I get a spot. Oh, there's one right there. And there's one too. I'd like to get one right up close to the restaurant. There was a spot right out in front. I don't know where this person's going. I'm going straight. I'm going to go here. Yeah, we'll park up front. A cool little town. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to my rant. We'll talk to y'all later.